This is Truth is Scarier Than Fiction, and I'd like to welcome you to 50 True Scary Stories, Volume 2. Number 1. I love telling this story. I'm working in far northern Alberta. It's an area where it's literally a huge-ass forest, and the only signs of civilization are oil and gas wells. It's all muskeg in the forest area. Muskeg is scary just by itself. It's soft ground from decaying stuff in the forest that has grass growing on top. It can be immensely deep water / rotting plants and animals, but thick enough for grass to grow and some small trees to even take root. It's Alberta's quicksand. Moose are known to venture into it and get stuck and drown. In areas like this, some of the wells can only be visited by most vehicles in winter. Some are even more remote and can only be accessed by helicopter, even in winter. I picked up a pretty sweet job on one of those helicopters, doing maintenance run for 2 years. I want to stress these locations are at least 300 to 400 kilometers away from any real civilization at this point, and traveling in these areas is dangerous, not only because of animals, but from stuff like muskeg. One summer, my pilot lands us down. As we land, a guy exits the little shack we set up on the site. He looks pretty normal, a little tattered and rough, but looks like a normal guy. He has fairly straight-cut, short black hair, and a bit of a 5 o'clock shadow. He has an Iron Maiden t-shirt on that's way too large, and regular blue jeans. He's going towards the tree line. I yell at something to him like, "Hey, what are you doing here? We can help you get home." He keeps going. I yell it again. "What the hell, man? How did you get out here? We can help you." The pilot even yells out something like, "We can cancel our run and get you to safety." He makes it to the tree line while we're yelling. He stops and looks back kind of. His face kind of slips into a smile. Then he runs in the trees and disappeared. No one at work believed us. It still stuck with me. Truly the weirdest thing I've experienced. Everything in that shack was normal. Number 2. There's a local legend. The story goes, some couple back in the day broke down and got viciously ganked and left on a bridge at night. A real butcher job, notable for the removed eyeballs of the victims. It's a local legend, and the bridge got regularly violated with graffiti eyeball designs, but people do not hang around that hellhole at night, for semi-spooky but entirely practical reasons. See, its particular location makes it extremely susceptible to a very inordinate amount of fog, so you can't see anything late night. Add the utter refusal of anyone to put a light within the mile of eyeball bridge, and you're basically asking for an accident in the dark. The bridge itself, graffiti aside though, is pretty large, and spans a large creek. Scenic and pleasant by day, and pitch-black fog surround it by night. Having been there in the evening a time or two, the place has a very distinctive, off-putting vibe as soon as the sun sets, and I've not met anyone who didn't find the place at least mildly unsettling. But that may just be because of the ocular-related murder tales, more than anything supernatural. More sensitive types can't stand the place and have small panic attacks. They have to get away, so to speak. It's our local double homicide story and haunted spot. Number 3. I was 15, and I just got my first personal .22 rifle. It's all mine, and I'm super proud. It was bolt action and super accurate. I loved it. I have a family friend who owns property like 10 minutes away from our house. On this property is an old house, built by homesteaders around 100 years ago, and it's fallen apart. Right next to it is a creek and a field. We used to camp on the far side of the field all the time. We would also shoot using the creek as a berm. One day, I decided I want to go camping. I bike out there with my .22, a box of ammo, and the normal stuff I would bring camping. I'm super excited, and shoot like 200 rounds at cans and stuff from the trash hole nearby. It started getting dark, so I built a fire and busted out a harmonica to practice. I was terrible at it, but it kept my mind busy while I'm relaxed. Suddenly, something isn't right. I feel like I'm being watched. The hair on my neck is raised. My heart is elevated. My mind starts racing, imagining things I've seen out there. I'm clutching my rifle and flashlight, scanning the trees and the field for movement. The shadows are playing tricks on my mind. It's a moonless night, and I want to go home. I wish I'd brought a tent to at least hide inside, but it was summer in Texas, and was too hot. I started building the fire bigger. I made a torch of sorts, with a stick and a torn up t-shirt I'd brought along with thoughts of making some sort of camouflage for my rifle. The darkness is giving out no secrets, but I can definitely hear something out there walking around. I didn't want to shoot it because sometimes cows wander onto the property. Maybe it's a coyote. They're common out here. But no, not in this particular area. Too many farmers and rednecks hunt them. They avoid it. I think I hear breathing at this point. It's circling me and getting closer. I'm pissing my pants by this point, wishing I'd brought something big bore. This was before cell phones were inexpensive, so I didn't have one. I just told my parents I was going camping and where. Great, so they'll find my grisly remnants tomorrow morning after I don't come home. I'm sweating buckets and running out of wood. The fire's dying. I contemplate running for it, but the woodsman in me wouldn't leave the fire. It was too dry out there. Then suddenly, I hear a deep, echoing bark from kind of far off. The thing circling me stops for a second. There's a long pause, and then another bark, closer, and the thing takes off in the direction, away from me and the bark. An enormous white fluffy dog comes trotting out of the tree line. It's super friendly and has a collar on it that says Snowman. Snowman and I chill out for a few hours. Only once he turns his head, perks his ears and growls, half barks, and then goes back to normal. I feel totally safe with Snowman there. Eventually, I fall asleep with the big lug next to me. It's hot, but who gives a damn? Next morning, Snowman is gone, and I figure he went home after the thing buggered off for good. The next day, I'm talking to the property owner. I tell him of that night, and he confirms no cows were out there. I mention Snowman, and he looks at me like I'm an asshole. Snowman was my dog. He was killed by a car last year. I tell him that I was serious, and Snowman was real. I petted him and got covered in his white hair and everything, and he saved my skin from what was out there. He doesn't believe me until I dig the shirt out of the wash and show him the hair all over it. He says it looks just like Snowman's. Every now and then, I hear a bark off in the distance while camping, and feel warm inside. Number 4. In the 60s, a really bad tornado took down every building in town besides this old Coca-Cola factory and one house next to it. The house ended up getting torn down anyway in the 70s because once they were done rebuilding it, it looked really old and out of place. No houses were rebuilt. Teens sometimes hang out there on the pavement outside the lot and drink. Nobody, even the small kids, dare go onto the lot because of stories that they heard. 2 boys in the 70s ran around on the lot as a joke. One died of a heart attack during class a week later, and the other got pneumonia 2 months later, and died within the year. A 10-year-old girl in the 90s ran away from her mom, and played on the lot before her mom found her. She died 2 years later from cancer. Nobody has stepped on it since. The city doesn't even mow the lot. Number 5. I went to bed 2 hours ago. I was awake for 22 hours and I only slept 4 hours the previous day, so I was very tired. I'm asleep, dreaming about trying to get to sleep while my brother's watching Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. I start having a janky dream that's a mix between reality, trying to fall asleep, and Lord of the Rings, except some weird stuff like Saruman riding an elephant, and a corrupt cop revenge story where a cop is trying to shoot Saruman. I feel something press against my ear. I realize I'm asleep and it's probably nothing. It starts pressing harder against the ear. It's the ear opposite of my pillow. I wake up because I think it's my brother pressing against my head or something. He's sleeping across from me in the same room. I'm officially scared now. It's pressing even harder and it hurts really bad. I force my eyes open and turn over the bed, but it's very difficult to force my eyes open. Nothing is there, and the pain subsides, but I could still feel it, even as I was awake and opening my laptop. Number 6. I live in rural Canada. There's a beach a few of my friends went camping at, about a 2-hour walk along the tracks into the woods along a lake. They were having a fire, and it was dark. When baseball-sized rocks started being tossed at them from the woods, they yelled to see if it was a person, even though it's odd anyone would be walking out there after dark and throwing rocks. They didn't hear anything in the woods, but a few more rocks were thrown, and then it stopped. The next morning, they went to investigate, and there was a clear trail that went basically straight up the mountain. One of our friends' dads said a similar thing happened out there to him as well. So now we call it Sasquatch Beach and bring guns there when we're hoping to bag a squatch. Number 7. This is the recounting of a story someone had seen. The main character's name is Molly, and she was having a sleepover when she was 8. Some cute boy who's over is watching cartoons while she plays with their dolls. Her older brother wants to use the TV or something, so he dares the boy to go in the woods behind their house. She goes with him because she doesn't want him to be scared. They run into the woods for a while. They've got flashlights, and they're talking, so they're not really scared. Then they hear someone behind them. Molly has the boy turn his flashlight off, and they hide. Being kids, they're spooked, but they're not really afraid of dying or anything. They hear footsteps move directly in front of them, but they don't see anything. The boy turns his flashlight on, and there's nothing there. The footsteps are clear as day. The grass even appears to move, but they don't see anyone. They decide to go back. It's been a minute anyway. While going back, they hear running behind them. They start to run. Molly trips, and the boy runs to her side. The footsteps go right around her. She told me it was like someone was running, but stepped over her head or something. She starts crying really loudly. The boy shows up again. He walks her back to the house. Her brother was watching wrestling or something, and she's really upset. He starts talking to her about it, and asks her what's in her hand. She realizes that at some point she picked up a little wooden doll with a pointed nose, like a little stick man with a big bird-like nose. Fast forward 15 years. She meets a guy at a hippie bluegrass show, and rambles a story to him over the course of 2 hours, while very clearly on LSD or shrooms. She hands him the doll, and disappears, and can't be found again. Number 8. I was in the Navy. Right before I get assigned, someone died on board while on deployment. They crawled into the bilge and had hot water dumped on them that cooked off their skin. This happened in the engine room that I worked in. When the ship is in port, there is a watch called Cold Iron Watch. Basically, you are alone in a shutdown plant, walking around making sure there isn't a fire, and taking readings on stuff like shore water. On your duty day, you usually stand to 6 and 6. 6 hours on watch, 6 hours off. So you stand 2 watches in a 24-hour day. There's 4 watch teams, so you only have to do this once every 4 days. If you're on watch late at night, spooky stuff starts to happen in the plant. You'll hear tools clatter to the floor, lockers slam shut, and weird banging noises on equipment. One day, they shut off all the lights in the plant because contractors were coming in to do some work on all the equipment. It was dark, so they hung up these Christmas-looking lights everywhere to give some illumination. But it wasn't the colored type of lights, so it was still gloomy and spooky. I have to stand 6 hours of watch in the middle of the night by myself while someone else is off doing whatever. I see stuff moving out of the corner of my eye, and hear footsteps on the ladder rails, and papers getting knocked off the desk. Number 9. It's southwest Utah, all pretty and mountainous and desert. We go for this party with a bunch of college kids. We're all drinking in a gypsum quarry in the middle of the desert. Big bonfire going, tons of people talking there. This one dude starts telling me about the time that he climbed up to a notable hangout spot in town, like a really big rock/hill type thing that overlooks the town, in the middle of the night, because I guess he was a moron or something. He gets up there, looks over the town, and is really enamored by the lights and stuff. Then he hears his mother's voice behind him. He turns to look and sees a figure standing maybe 100 feet away. It appears to be approaching him without actually moving. For some reason, this compels him to try and run away. Unfortunately, he happens to be in a massive cliff rock thing, and he doesn't see a huge crack in it with like a 20-foot drop. This compels him to break his leg in several places. He's upset about this and tries to crawl away, but is in a great deal of pain. He can hear his mother's voice calling to him from above. Luckily, he's not just in a hole in the ground, and there's an opening to crawl out of. Teens who were making out or something nearby heard him, screaming bloody murder, and they called the police, who airlifted him to a hospital. Apparently, people just sort of die there all the time. There was a spot where the guardrail was missing around the road, and every so often you'd hear about a car tumbling right over the edge, and it's kinda hard to survive a fall like that. Number 10. My grandpa always taught me to fear rainy days. He would tell me these stories about Red Vark, the local maximum security prison. He would tell me about the violent criminals and the deeds they did to end up there. He would explain to me how some of these men were so dangerous that they couldn't be trusted to live in normal jail cells, and they had to be chained to the stone wall. My grandpa would tell me about, on some rainy and stormy nights, how the rain would weaken the stone, and how these men could pull the chains right off the wall, if the weather is bad enough. He showed me newspaper clippings of escapees. There was always a handful per year. He would tell me that, to a T, the prison barracks always coincided with rainy weather. Most escapees would flee to the surrounding neighborhoods. They would try to hide in people's garages and basements, under their porches, waiting for the rain to pass. Sometimes the men would break into the houses. Sometimes the men would do unspeakable things to the people residing in those houses. We lived only 8 miles from Red Vark, and on rainy days, my grandpa would remind me of this. My grandpa would tell me that on rainy days it was best to just stay in my room, to lock my door, and to put on some music on low, grab a comic book, and get my head somewhere else. He even taught me how to turn my closet into a fortress of solitude. We threw a blanket and a couple of pillows in there. I had a few posters of superheroes on the closet wall, and kept a comic book box and baseball cards in one corner, and a metallic footlocker filled with junk food and cassette tapes in the other. My grandpa would encourage me to get in the closet when it rained, especially when it stormed. I would sit in there listening to my Walkman and fingering through the comic books. I would eventually bundle up myself next to the pillows and drift to sleep. I felt safe in my closet, and I enjoyed the hours that I would spend in there on rainy days. He would tell me that most of the time during escapes, the convicts would usually only hurt people they happened to come across. If they broke into a home to avoid police, and there was a family sitting around the TV in the living room, they would strike. He would tell me that if a Red Vark prisoner escaped, if they came to our neighborhood and broke into our house, that as long as I stayed in my closet, I'd be okay. It would be possible for a convict to find me and hurt me, but as long as I had my closet fort, I would be as safe as anyone in town. I would remind myself of this on rainy days, and think about it when I was in my closet, and I would feel safe. My grandpa disappeared on June. I lived with him alone. My parents had died years earlier. My grandpa disappeared, and I was afraid to call the police. I knew if something happened to my grandpa, the police would take him away and force me to live in a home. And I didn't want to live in a home. I had a home. I kept his disappearance to myself for over a week. I would walk myself to school. I knew where Grandpa kept the emergency cash, and so I would take a little here and there to the corner bodega and buy some milk and sandwich meats. One day, after 8 days, since he had first disappeared, they let us out of school early. It was the storm of the century, they said. Thunder and lightning and heavy rain all night. The rain was so heavy that night, the local streets flooded over. On the walk home from school, the water was up to my ankles. By 9 o'clock, the water was coming up to people's knees. I got home and climbed in my little hiding space and covered myself in a blanket. Thunder clapped outside. I was very afraid. The storm unsettled me, but thinking about Red Vark and how easy it would be to escape in a storm like this is what terrified me. We lost power after a little while. I sat in the closet in darkness. I turned to my Walkman for solace. After a few hours, the music started to stutter. After a few more minutes, it stopped altogether. The batteries were dead as doornails. I continued to sit in silence. The power hadn't come back on yet. The darkness and silence enveloped me. Then the silence was broken by a scratching noise some distance away. I ignored it at first, but it grew louder and more insistent. Finally, I reluctantly left the safety of my fort. In the upstairs hallway, I stopped and listened. The noise was clearly coming from downstairs. I descended the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest. I got to the kitchen and stopped to listen again. The noise still sounded as if it were coming from below me. We had no basement, so the fact that the noises were coming from beneath me was unsettling. There were more noises now, too, not just the scraping. I thought I also heard moaning. I crouched, low to the floor, listening. The noises got louder as I entered the living room, louder still as I entered the main corridor. I stopped at a throw rug at the end of the hallway. The noises were at their loudest here below me. I pulled the throw rug away and saw a trapdoor. It must have led to a basement or crawl space that I had no idea existed. I had no idea there was anything under that rug, and I wondered why it was padlocked. I grabbed a ring of old keys that hung on a hook in the mudroom. I tried the keys in the padlock one after another. The fourth key slid into the lock like a brace runner sliding into something patterned on the bottom of the trapdoor. It was followed by muffled voices. "Hello? Be there?" I could barely make out the noises. "Help us!" I understood that. I turned the key and lifted up the trapdoor. The worst smell I have ever known wafted up and hit me in the chest. I instantly heard women crying and a man's voice sobbing, "Thank God! Oh, thank God!" And then another, "Water, please, we need water." The next 2 days were a whirlwind. Police, media, and gawkers descended on the house. Our small town in Arizona never saw that much excitement. The news of a homegrown serial killer sent an electric jolt to the populace. The media was relentless. The police had a million questions. Where's your grandfather? I don't know. Did you know what he was doing? Did you help him hide a secret? No, I'd said. No, never. Did you help your grandfather bury the bodies in the backyard? No. You must have helped, they said. No. You must have helped. An old man like that wouldn't be able to dig in the Arizona clay all by himself. And then it hit me. Rain, I'd said. The police looked at me blankly. What? He'd wait for it to rain. Number 11. This is a story from my friend's perspective. She was at my house and told me. I had my dumb friend over. Together, we're really dumb, but we make a good team. We're hanging out in the living room, and I ask if she wants to watch some UFO documentary. She doesn't really want to talk about anything related to aliens. I question her, and she goes on about how she's seen UFOs. She was traveling back home from the south when she hallucinated in the car, kinda. It's a bit foggy, but she blanked out and saw a figure, and they told her something like, "Be warned," and she woke up in her room. Since then, she's seen white figures in her window. I try to reassure her about her experiences, and we decide to go upstairs and torrent spooky movies. Her mom is pretty psycho, and she decided to call at 11 p.m. about something. There's no service, so my friend goes outside to answer. I mess around in the bedroom waiting. She comes back after about 20 minutes, eyes big as saucers. I ask what's wrong. She jabs my leg with her finger, pointing, and says, "There was a man." I figure she's finally lost it. I go downstairs. My dad's in the kitchen, and my brother's in the basement. I look outside, and I don't see anything. She swears up and down that there is someone on my front porch. She says she went out the back door to the front porch and saw him. They stared at each other for about 2 seconds, and then she turned and left, figuring it was my brother smoking at that time. She thought about it and said this guy was tall, at least 6 foot. He was skinny, but he also had a huge pot belly. Skinny like emancipated, there was a gap between the upper arm and chest. She can't see his face, it's too dark. It couldn't have been my brother, as no one was outside. We live in a small area, and no neighbors remotely look like this guy. I still don't know what, or who, she saw. Number 12. My dad and his 3 brothers went out to look for birds' nests, to take the eggs. My dad took a spade, because he had this thing about finding treasures. After digging a few holes, he found a small statue. He described it as an imp or devil-like creature in a sitting position, with small horns and weird tendrils coming from the head and neck. It was made of bronze and had a hole in it, so it could have been for placing on the top of a walking stick. He took it into the house and gave it to his mom, who put it above the mantelpiece. Eventually, his dad found it, and took it into the woods, where he threw it into a pond. My dad was on a bus to his job with 1 or 2 of his brothers and a few of his friends. They worked at a hospital as porters or something similar. As you got closer to the place, there were huge, old-style chimneys for incinerating the bodies. They all saw an intense blue light come out from one of the chimneys and rise up and into the sky. I've asked 2 of the other people present, and they did say this happened. One of the cottages they lived in had a few deaths in it. My grandma would put my aunt to bed every night at 7:30, and she would wake up crying. So my gran goes up at 7:20 and sits at the stairs so she can sit and listen. At 7:30, a dark shadow in the form of a person moved near her cot, but when she got up and went into the room, it was gone. My aunt's cot was moved up into another room, and she stopped crying. My grandma was sitting in the window feeding one of my aunts. She was looking out of the window when she saw a small blue orb of light hopping around on the hedge. It did this for a while and shut off. Number 13. This is a creepy deep web story. It was 2 years ago, and I'm dicking around with my Polish friend. We hit on a hidden wiki, Anon-chan, etc. On Anon-chan, someone posted a link with some Cyrillic script and lots of exclamation points. Luckily enough, my buddy reads Russian. He translates it. "It's up again, hurry." Why not? We clicked the link. Here's what we saw. 3 dudes in military uniform, shown only from the neck down. They're speaking excitingly, and in super high-pitched Russian. My friend reads Russian better than he speaks it, but he catches a few phrases. Basically, these guys are scared and excited. They're getting another one. Eventually, it becomes clear that they're out on the ice in some random lake in Siberia, ice fishing. After a few minutes of nervous chatter, assault rifles start going off. The camera swings around wildly, and eventually starts focusing on a poorly lit hole in the ice. Gurgling and splashing noises are coming from it. These dudes and others are just straight pumping bursts down the hole. Eventually, after a few minutes, these dudes use long, hooked poles to dig around, and then they heave something up. It's a 20-foot long, fish-like, snake-looking monster, at least 3.5 feet in diameter. I'd say it was an anaconda, but it was brown and had really nasty, flabby fins that grabbed and stretched out, full of sea lice and holes. Big black eyes, mouth full of the gnarliest teeth I've ever seen. There were huge air sacs on its underside, looked like a lungfish or something. The video cuts to a series of photos of the thing, better lit than the video, presumably because they're shot with flash. Mottled brown skin with plenty of blood smeared all over it, presumably from the bullets and scraping the side of the hole they pulled it out of. One of the pictures showed what I'm guessing was the contents of its stomach, and there was all sorts of crazy stuff in it. Don't go swimming in Russia. Number 14. Not my story, something a Native American guy posted a while ago, but it's some of the creepiest shit I've ever heard. My dad picks me up from school in his pickup truck after he gets off work one winter's night. We were driving on a long stretch of road that goes through the woods. It's pitch black outside. The truck radio didn't work, so I was just sitting, staring straight out at the road, getting hypnotized by the passing trees. Suddenly, I started to get an intense sensation that something's watching me through the window to my right. I started to turn my head to see what it was, when my dad yells, "Don't look!" I immediately start to hear tapping on the window right next to my face. My heart stops. It's the only time I ever saw fear on my dad's face. He started to pray loudly in Navajo. I stare straight ahead, heart pounding, not daring to look out the window. Suddenly, the truck dips as the weight falls into the bed. Whatever that thing was is back, right behind my head. I start to hear tapping on the window behind me. My father makes me look at him as he continues to pray. I close my eyes tight and wish for it to be over. After a few endless minutes, the truck dips again and the tapping stops. My father says, "Tomorrow we will ask your grandfather to say a prayer so the evil will forget our faces." He said this in Navajo. I translated it. We drive home, and I lie awake in bed all night. My father and I never talk about it again. Number 15. I asked my friend if he has any tools that I need to finish a project. He says no, but he knows a guy from work who would be happy to help. Apparently he was interested in the same kind of art, but he warns me that he's a bit off. I drive my friend to work one day, and he introduces me. The guy seems really distant and withdrawn. He shakes my hand and we chat a bit. He seems real interested in the woodwork I was doing, and we talked about sculptures and such for a little while, things we'd learned, tools we used, etc. The guy warms up a bit, and I asked him if it would be alright if I checked out some of his stuff. He hesitantly agrees, kind of like when you're trying to come up with an excuse but just can't. He tells me to swing by that night. We can chat over a few beers. Later that night, I get a call. It's the guy. He sounds a little shaken up, and says things are chaotic at home, and right now isn't a good time. He says he'll call me sometime. Whatever, sure man. 2 weeks go by. The guy calls one afternoon, says things have settled down, and he wants me to bring over some of my works as well, to compare. Sure. So I start to head over, and notice this guy lives in the middle of nowhere. I had to call him up just to find his house. It's at the end of a long driveway. Beautiful acres of land. The driveway is littered with trees, and his house is actually pretty nice. As I come up the driveway, something strikes me odd about the trees I was passing up. They all have faces carved into them facing the driveway. Twisted, pained faces. I didn't think much of it. I make morbid stuff myself. In fact, I was very impressed. The amount of detail was staggering. Looking out onto the tree line of the property, every tree had a painted face on it, looking onto the house, almost like the woods were watching you wherever you were. This kind of creeped me out. Looking out, seeing 100 or so white faces, just crying out. Kind of like they wanted your attention. I knock on the door, and the guy answers with a beer in hand, and a much friendlier demeanor than before. He helps me carry some of my stuff in, and he shows me around. The guy seems pretty cool. I begin to notice each room has one of the same damned faces hanging above the door frame. The more I saw them, the more I felt sick. Up close, the faces were much more detailed than I had imagined, almost surrealistic. I ask him what this focus on the faces is for, and the guy kind of tensed up and dodged my question. Upon entering this workshop, which was sweet by the way, he seemed to have other interests besides creepy faces. Entire 7-foot-tall sculptures of women, men, animals, etc., all very well done. And one with a tarp in the back, just chilling there. He says it isn't done yet, so I don't bother. I was right in front of a door that I think led to another room. We begin working on stuff together, trading stories, and times we'd accidentally injured ourselves. Suddenly, subjects change, and the guy asks me what I think about God. I tell him I'm not very religious, but I don't rule anything out. The guy starts getting a bit loud, saying that God is a blatant lie. He was told so. By who? He kind of silenced for a moment, then abruptly asked me if I believed in spirits. I gave him kind of the same agnostic answer. It's possible. He starts looking around the room, as if seeing if anyone around, and then his voice goes soft, and he kind of whispers for a moment. I see things in the woods. At dusk, I can see their shadows. Sometimes they whisper from the trees, and I can hear them. Obviously, this guy's mentally disturbed. I egg him on, ask him what they tell him, etc. They tell him that God is a lie. The only thing after death is darkness. He says they laugh at him and leave dead animals at his tree line. I'm officially creeped out by this point. He said for a while they visited him at night, and each face carving represented a different spirit that had visited him. He says they can't stand looking at themselves in death, so they don't step within the tree line. Thus why he has the entire thing carved out. I'm pretty silent at this point. I hadn't had goosebumps so bad since I was a kid, and chills just running up my spine. He told me they talked to him from the tree line at night, and try to get him to leave his home. I eagerly try to change the subject. The guy looks down and just keeps talking. He's pale as a sheet, and was obviously genuinely terrified. He even kind of looks like he's welling up. He tells me I'm the only person he's told. Knowing I'm a stranger, he apologizes, and says he's scared and doesn't know what to do anymore. I try my best to awkwardly console this stranger, and the guy actually kind of starts to break down. I think he needs help, but it's not my place to give it to him. I regrettingly ask him why he's afraid, He says the faces don't work anymore, and 2 weeks ago he had something terrible in his living room. Huh? He walks over to the tarp sculpture and pulls the tarp off to reveal the most mangled, terrible thing I had ever seen. It hardly resembled a human being. It was terrifying to have imagined this guy seeing it standing in his living room. Shortly after, a loud bang on the wall to my right. I nearly jumped out of my skin. This guy didn't even flinch. Then again, bang! And it just continued on and on, continuously, like hail hitting a tin roof. The guy screams, "Stop it!" and it ceases. After that, I grabbed my stuff, told the guy I'm sorry, and got out of there as quickly as possible. As I'm leaving his home and driveway, I look into the rearview mirror, and the tree line is darker than I've ever seen. The guy calls a week later and apologizes, saying he was silly and everything's okay now. My friend says the guy quit, and he never heard from him again. 16. I'm of German descent, but my parents moved to Korea before I was born. Because of my dad going on business trips all the time, plus general parental conflict, my Korean friend's family pretty much raised me as their own. My friend's family is crazy superstitious, which is weird since most of the country now believes in Christianity. I live in the mountaintops with my Korean family for most of my childhood, and then moved to the city around high school age. I honestly didn't even consider this to be all creepy. It was just part of life for me. Recently, I moved to the US, and whenever I mention the stuff that happened in my childhood, my new friends lose their shit. Here's a little background. My Korean foster family is from North Korea. They came down during the Korean War. I have a superstitious grandfather, a Christian grandmother, both maternal, parents who were friends with my parents, always wanted to get out of the mountains, and a daughter who's my age and was pretty much my only friend. The grandfather is the patriarch, and what he says goes. This includes all sorts of weird traditional ceremonies and rituals, and a lot of creepy hiking and fishing trips. It's generally a pretty chill family. Lots of conflict about my grandfather's superstitiousness, though, and you can kind of see the mom's losing her mind over the years for some unknown reason. We live in the middle of nowhere. You have to drive 30 minutes to reach the nearest town. This is a ritual we used to do a few times every year. Apparently, there are families in the city that also perform it, but none of my other Korean friends have gone through quite what I used to. On the death day of his ancestors, our grandfather set up a mini shrine and prepares a bunch of food. It only has to be specific kinds of dishes, and they have to be arranged according to color and size. After setting up food on the special tables in the living room, my grandfather reads a handwritten letter, generally following the lines of, "Everyone misses you, rest well, please take this offering of food in peace," and burns it. He sometimes adds the line about me, something like, "Please excuse the blonde boy, we are taking care of him," as the ritual is usually only performed by the family. Everyone takes turns bowing in a special ceremonial way. When everyone is done bowing, grandfather turns off all the lights and everyone hides in the kitchen for about half an hour. You always have to clear your throat before walking out again. Not to startle the ancestors, grandfather says. The food is partially eaten, utensils are dirty, and the seat cushions are warm. This one time when I was about 6, my mom got tired of making the specific dishes. They're extremely time-consuming, and replaced them with easier ones. My grandfather flew into a rage, but we don't have time to redo everything. "Do you realize what you've done?" He gives us that speech. We finish bowing and hide in the kitchen when you hear rattling and banging from the living room. The kids get restless, so me and the daughter hold on to the grandfather while he swears under his breath. An hour later, the noise stops. Grandfather clears his throat, goes outside and turns on the lights. The dishes are overturned. Candles are out. Something that looks like either dried blood or watery fecal matter is strewn on the shrine. My mom always made the correct dishes from then on. I was 13, and one day, I go into the mountains with the daughter, I'll call her Jin from now on, to find some mushrooms. We bring one of the family Jindo dogs to be safe. Those guys are protective as hell. We have a good time, and are messing around, when Ogu, the Jindo dog, starts to bark like crazy. We see a teenage-looking girl just kind of standing there, wearing old-fashioned clothes. But since this is a rural area, we think nothing of it. We go say hi. We're glad we found someone else our age. The new girl says her family moved into the empty plot about 15 minutes away. The dog is still barking at her, but we brush it off. He's just being protective. We hang out with her for a bit, and she keeps touching me, commenting on my hair and eyes, saying I'm exotic and cute. The sun starts going down, so we ask her if she wants to come over and have dinner with us. She says no, but invites me, and only me, to come over to her place and see her room. It's getting dark and my brother instincts kick in, so I tell the new girl I'll drop by later and take Jin home. I'm pretty pissed right now, and later tell grandfather what happened. Idiot boy, that empty plot isn't for sale. He tells us to take a Jindo wherever we go from then on. We meet her a few times later that week, and she progressively gets more and more seductive. The dogs bark at her, so we just go home. We ran home and told grandfather what happened. A few days later, Ogu brings home a fox he killed, and we never see the girl again. Basically, the foxes shapeshift into women whose corpses they eat. They seduce and kill men, and eat their liver. Once they eat 1,000 livers, they supposedly turn into a real human, according to the legend. My grandfather says there are two types of ghosts: Yu Yang, which are docile spirits, and Gui Xin, which are malicious spirits that usually just want closure. There was a small lake near where we lived. Grandfather always told us to take a white Jindo when we went near the lake, as there is a Gui Xin who lived there. Gui Xin who live in the bodies of water there are called Mu Gui Xin, but this one was also a Shui Nui Gui Xin, a virgin who had been wronged. Occasionally, from far away, you can make out a youngish-looking woman who looks soaked, just sitting on the dock. I always thought she looked kind of lonely and sad, instead of angry. She didn't do much, but kind of hissed, almost like a cat, and disappeared whenever she saw the white Jindo. His name was Jin Gu. This one time, when I'm about 9, I got brave and walked up to the lake. She's still pretty far away, but I can see the Gui Xin sitting on the dock again. Being the moron that I am, I call out to her something like, "Lady, are you okay?" Gui Xin gets up and starts walking toward me. When I say walking, it was more like a cross between walking and gliding. Kinda like when you stand still and look at someone going through one of those moving runways at the airport. Anyway, the Gui Xin keeps coming closer and closer, and suddenly I realize I forgot to bring the white Jindo. I panic. The Gui Xin is close as hell now, and I can see her facial features are all kind of blacked out and melted together, like ink melting in water. I scream. She screams too, but stops when I make some sort of noise. And then she starts to study me. She makes a weird gurgling noise, like someone's trying to laugh underwater. "Your head is yellow." She walks and glides back to the dock. I run all the way back home, the piss cooling on my pants. The next day, grandfather makes me bring some food as an offering to the lake, to thank the Gui Xin for not harming me. I'd like to think I made her day. Some more information on Jindos. They're Korea's national dog, and they kinda look like a Shiba. They come in 3 colors, white, tan, and black and tan. You can't train them like a Labrador Retriever to do cute tricks, but they'll give their lives to protect you in your home. According to superstition, white Jindos chase away evil spirits, tan Jindos can fight their way out of anything, and black Jindos make spirits accept you as one of them. Grandfather rarely had black Jindos. He also had a shotgun in his closet that was illegal, as you can't own a gun in Korea, lol. I was 11, and our toughest tan Jindo died. More on this later, so grandfather got another one. He's a hard one even when he's a puppy, and he's loyal as hell to grandfather and Jin. By the time he's 1, he's bigger and brownier than the other dogs. His name was Suk-gu. One day, Jin wants to go down to the creek and catch some fish. Grandfather tells her to take a white Jindo, but she takes Suk-gu. I contemplate going with her, but I was helping grandmother out with some chores, so I stay behind. Besides, I get the feeling that Mom is starting to hate me, being around her too much. A few hours later, we hear something that sounds like a tiger from the mountains. I ask grandfather, as tigers are most likely extinct in Korea. It might be ka-bai. Ka-bai are basically Korean trolls. They don't mean serious harm, but they're extremely strong and enjoy messing with people. Sometimes they'll unwittingly drive someone mad or kill them. The sun is going down, but Jin and Suk-gu aren't home yet. Grandfather starts getting worried. Sometime later, we see Jin running home screaming. She says a human hand, but clawed, came out of the bushes. She ran home, but the last thing she saw was Suk-gu jumping into the bush to fight whatever was there. Her parents try to reason and say it was probably a lost person. Grandfather brushes this off. You two were raised in the city and know nothing. Why would a lost person be this far away from a town? Then, we see something run toward the house from far away. It's Suk-gu, and he has a leg in his mouth. It's like a human leg, except way bigger, and covered in hair. It's gnawed through the thigh, but there's no blood, just watery stuff splattered all over it, and Suk-gu. Grandfather confirms it's a ka-bai, and throws out the leg deep into the mountains. We put out food for about a week as an apology to its clan. They leave human-like shits in our yard as a sort of screw you for about a month. The thing about growing up in rural Korea as a foreigner is that if you run into a spirit, they're either going to be extra hostile toward you, or they're going to be too busy laughing at you to harm you. The closest school was half an hour away, so grandfather would drive me and Jin to school every morning. There were only 7 kids in our grade, only 3 graduated. The rest either died or moved to the city. The kids were pretty cool and ganged up on me a lot, calling me names like Yellow Monkey or Yankee, even though I was German. Grandfather thought school was horrible, so he let me skip as long as I showed up for exams and passed them. When I was 10, he got me my very own white Jindo, which I named Baekgu. I was exploring the mountains and picking and eating mushrooms one day. I heard something rustle in the bushes, and Baekgu started whimpering and cowering. A black dog-like creature slinks out from the bushes. I freeze in my tracks. I wasn't sure if he was friendly or malicious, but Baekgu was clearly scared. It looked like a cross between a big dog and a leopard, but had a long, almost trunk-like snout, and the fur looked like it was ablaze or smoldering, although there is no fire or heat coming off of it. The thing makes a snarling and growling motion, but no sound comes out of its mouth. I'm convinced that this is how I die. I hear a gunshot go off in the distance and remember that my grandfather has his illegal gun. Another gunshot goes off, this time so close my whole skull feels like it's ringing and I can see the bullet whiz by. The thing chases after the bullet and is gone. I hightail it out of there with my dog and grandfather. What I ran into turned out to be a bull gay sauri. They eat fire and metal and are hostile apparently. As this one has claimed the deep mountains as its home, we're forbidden to go that deep again. One thing about Korean ghosts, both docile and malicious, is that they're very much like people. You can reason with them, trick them, scare them, and even make friends. I was 14. I went to school one day. When school ends, I leave my book bag in the classroom and go out with Jin to throw out the trash. No janitors at school, so the kids help out with the work. I go to pick up my bag, while Jin waits outside. The teacher is standing with her back to the door, just kind of staring at something on the wall. I say goodbye. She doesn't respond. I get slightly nervous and ask her if she's okay. She turns around and, oh shit, she doesn't have a face. Dal-Gal Guishin are malicious spirits that act like people, but have no face. From what I know, they'll usually leave you alone. The thing acts just like the teacher, and it's just heading way too close to the uncanny valley now. I'm creeped out, but also kinda pissed, because I'm a moody teenager and I just want to go home. It starts talking, and even its voice sounds like my teacher. Do you think I'm pretty? You don't even have a face. I don't want to piss these things off, because Korean ghosts get vicious when they're mad. If I say, you're pretty, it will say I'm lying because it clearly doesn't have a face. If I say, you're not pretty, it will say I'm disgusted at its lack of face. I just want to go home and play with my damn dog and go fishing. I start singing the Korean national anthem really loudly, and the thing starts screaming, sounding equally angry. I hear the classroom door open, and the screaming stops abruptly. What are you doing? It's the actual teacher. I run home, and bitch about Guishins with Jin. Things started falling apart by my mid-teens. I believe this was because my grandfather was getting old and weak, but it may just be because I was getting pretty messed up emotionally, and whatever spirits out there could sense it. I was 16 and doing some chores around the yard when I heard a familiar voice. It's my mom and dad. I walk towards their voices, kinda tearing up because I haven't seen them since I was like 4, and the only reason I remember them are the phone calls that come once every few months. I'm angry, but glad at the same time. My parents are standing at the edge of grandfather's property. It's us, let's go home now. So many things I want to yell at them, but it's like I'm too choked up. I remember grandfather didn't tell me my parents would be coming for me. I'm going to bring grandfather. Oh, but aren't you going to let your own mother hug her own son? I notice something wrong about it, but I'm too emotionally shaken. I start crying, kinda staying there. The dogs are barking like crazy. I can hear Jin calling me for dinner from the home. My parents keep urging me to come over them and give them a hug. Go home, talk to them. Come on, son. It's going to be a long drive home. Wait a second. Then where's your car? They go quiet, but soon trying to play it off as a joke. I keep asking where the car is. They get angry and start threatening me with punishments, saying I'm breaking mom's heart, etc. I'm still sobbing and hyperventilating, not sure whether to go to them or to run back home. I think Jin noticed and told grandfather because he came out with the dog on a leash. The dog starts growling, and this old leathery Korean fart bellows like an ox.
Leave my grandson alone, creatures.
My parents let out something like a cross between a bird screeching and an old door creaking, then disappear into the grass. For some reason, Grandfather never speaks of this again. This still chokes me up a little. Here's how our toughest dog died. Relatives come to visit for the weekend. Jin's cousins come too. One is a guy about 5 years older, the other is a guy 2 years older. There's also a girl, but she just sits in the kitchen and does Bible study with grandmother all day, so we ignore her. We try to get along at first, but the cousins are just too boisterous, yelling cuss words in the mountains, throwing rocks at deer. Eventually, we just let them do their own thing. It turns out while Jin, grandfather, and I went fishing, these bastards went into the mountains and found a small family graveyard. Korean graveyards are tiny, with 4 or 5 bodies buried at most, especially if you find one in rural areas. Anyway, they trash the place, kicking down shrines and littering everywhere. They come home after they heard someone crying and got scared. Grandfather's seething, but he doesn't say anything, and he doesn't expect city kids to understand. For the next few days, we see angry ghosts at the edge of our property hissing at our dogs, but not able to come any closer because of our white windows. We leave offerings around the property, but they're pissed as hell and won't stop trashing our vegetable gardens. Grandfather genuinely looks stumped. One day, our most prized hen Jindo disappears. We think he may have been hunting something, but he doesn't come home for days. Eventually, we go out to look for him. We find his body ripped to shreds, strewn around the trashed graveyard. His intact head is in front of the damaged shrine. Grandfather quietly covers his dog's head with a towel. He doesn't talk to us for a few days, just smokes out of his pipe on the patio and stares into the mountains. I still miss the dog. I always think he sacrificed himself as an offering to save everyone else. In Korean mythology, magpies are harbingers of good luck and prosperity. It is said if you hear a magpie calling in the morning, it means you'll have a friendly visitor later that day. I like to think magpies acted like sort of a guardian. My room is on the 2nd floor, right next to the persimmon tree in the garden. Magpies love persimmons, and there are always a bunch of them near the house. Grandfather and I make a habit of leaving the persimmons at the very top and picking them from the trees so the magpies can help themselves. This is just at the level of my window, so I guess magpies kind of associated seeing my face with food and general good vibes. I come home from school one day. For some reason, I'm really tired, so I take a nap. The magpies won't stop calling, though. Some even bang and peck at the windows. I yell, "Shut up, birds!" and try to sleep, but they're too loud. Swearing, I get up and storm out of the room to sleep somewhere else. As I turn to close the door, I catch a glimpse of something stuck to the ceiling. It's a ghost. As I stare, its head turns towards me, and it gives me the ugliest look. But before it can react to me leaving the room, the magpies start cawing and banging at the window, and it turns its attention to the birds. I run out and alert Grandfather. He grabs a pot and a pan, runs up to my room, flings open the door, and starts banging the pot and pan while yelling, "Get out!" The ghost hisses and slithers into the cracks of the wall. We knew someone died in the house before we moved in. We just didn't know the guy had hanged himself in my room. We leave out an offering that night and I sleep on the couch. The next morning, the offering is gone, and we don't see that ghost again for a good 3 months. Whenever the ghost appears, again, the magpies do their squawk and I fetch Grandfather. It feels pretty good having a personal army of magpies. I was 17. I start kinda having a thing for Jin, but we don't show it because it's a bit like incest and her mother's completely off the hook at this point and would kill us both. One day, Grandfather goes to tend to his berry patches and doesn't return. We look for him for a few hours and find him on the ground, looking peaceful and comprised as hell, like he just laid down to take a nap and never got up. Doctors tell us he died of a heart attack. I'm stunned. The man who took me in his own family, after my own family put me aside, taught me all the values I ever held dear, basically kept me alive all these years, in a patch of mountain, crawling with unknown creatures, is gone just like that. Jin is also inconsolable, and we spend a lot of time sitting out by grandfather's favorite fishing spot, not saying anything. We bury him in a private plot. Jin and I go to his grave every day to clean the shrine. A few months later, grandmother sells her house and we move to the city. All the dogs are sold too, including mine. I'm too shocked to pretend nothing happened and lived with my adopted family, and too angry to live with my biological one. Grandmother gives me enough money to rent a small apartment, barely larger than a closet. I couldn't focus on anything, so I fail my college entrance exams. I barely scrape by flipping burgers and working at gas stations, convenience stores, and stocking warehouses. In a way, it's more peace than I've ever known, as I see no ghosts in my apartment. Sometimes I wonder what happened to Jin, as we grew apart, and I knew her mother was off her rocker and sometimes physically hurt her. Meanwhile, Jin is accepted to a good college. We decide to go to grandfather's grave and show him the acceptance letter, as well as perform the ritual, and just don't talk to each other ever again, as it was getting too weird. The whole family decides to follow us for some reason. It's getting dark. Just before we leave, Jin places her acceptance letter on grandfather's shrine. Suddenly, her mother starts screaming, "He's dead, you crazy kids. He can't hear or see any of this shit." She accuses grandmother of being crazy, and yells at Jin for being stupid enough to believe all this bull. We try to argue back, but you saw it too, but she's raving at this point. Eventually, she calms down enough for Jin's dad to take her back to the car. We just sit in front of grandfather's grave for the longest time. When we finally head back, I swear I can see a bluish flame-looking thing flickering above his grave. Weeks pass. I'm getting paid just enough to get by, and trying to forget everything that ever happened in my childhood. One night, I hear incessant tapping on my window, almost like how the magpies used to tap. Wait, I live in the basement. There is no window. I feel a deep, shuddering cold feeling in my guts. I always thought it was alerting me to a spirit nearby, but now I realize it's fear. I run wildly into the street and catch a taxi to grandmother's house. I can hear screaming inside. The door bursts open and Jin runs out, blood on her arms and her face as white as paper. Something in her mother's head had snapped, and she had grabbed a kitchen knife and slashed at Jin. What about your dad and grandmother? Dad's visiting his family, and grandmother was too afraid to come out of her room. Jin swears up and down that just as her mother is about to seriously stab her, a blue flame flickered out of nowhere and lit her skirt on fire. I try my best to calm her down and call 911. Things settle down from there. Jin and I realize nobody else will understand us as well as each other. We're getting married next winter. Her mother is diagnosed with schizophrenia, and her grandmother goes to live with Jin's aunt. Thanks, Grandpa. Number 17. It was late at night and I had just finished my chores. I was probably 14 or so. I needed to wash my boots off in the parlor, because that's where the boot washing hose was. I walk in there. I've done this I don't know how many times. And suddenly I get chills down my spine. My body goes into alert mode and my senses are suddenly expanded. I don't know how to explain other than trying to watch and hear everything at once because lizard brain is screaming danger. I get out of there, never taking my eyes off the doorways I just came through, so nothing can stake through me and cut me off. I make it outside, but my boots are still covered in shit. Some random bar cat comes in, so I pick him up and then re-enter. The cat stops purring. By the time I get to the pit, the cat is clawing on me to get away. As quick as I can, I wash my boots and get outside again. The cat calms back down outside. It's like a feeling of dread and danger that is in this place. Not a small feeling, like this place is creepy, but overwhelming. For no reason either. Not thinking spooky stuff or anything to trigger it. It just happens. Number 18. My parents got me a dog when I was really young. I've known her literally my whole life. She got ran over years ago, so now she's got a limp and her tail does circles through the air when she walks. You can track her by her paw prints and slanted marks from her tail as it traces circles. Anyway, I was 16 at this point, and it was New Year's Eve. I was the last one outside as usual, and it's around 10 p.m. I'm walking with Amy beside me. As I'm walking in the house, the snow is crunching beneath my feet. I'm about 100 feet away from the house when I say something out loud, and I can't remember what. I spend a lot of time alone, so it's not unusual for me to talk to myself. Amy starts laughing. It was a really throaty, deep guttural laugh, not a dog laugh, that's for sure. I look down and realize that she's walking without her limp. No hesitation. I run inside the garage and slam the door. I get it locked in about half a second. I get yelled at for slamming the door, but I don't care. That's trivial compared to what just happened. It still gives me goosebumps because it was such a terrifying situation. Dogs don't laugh like that. The fact that she had no limp made it worse. After a day, she was normal again. Number 19. I was living in a minivan because I was between jobs. It's not really that bad. I've always been an extremely light sleeper. I can sometimes predict things in advance. It hasn't been extremely useful, but it's happened enough where I think it isn't just chance. I don't really believe in supernatural stuff, but I have no explanation for this. I know what way a car coming down the road will turn before it indicates or pulls off, or what some stranger will order at a cafe before he orders. One night I'm in the van and I wake up, laying in half asleep mode. About 2 minutes pass when the car pulls up in the road, idles, and then the guy opens and shuts the door fast as he gets out. The car drives away, and it seems to be going pretty fast. I hear the guy walking down the road quickly. Not the sidewalk, the road. He tries my door handle. I'm fully awake now. My door was locked, but he continues on and tries every car handle. I have no explanation for how I woke up in advance of this. It's happened a few times now where I wake up a few minutes before a car or person approaches my vehicle, usually benign, or a few minutes before trouble starts. Number 20. I was at a sleepover with friends in a friend's house. The house was old and built back in the 30s. She has a room full of her doll collection, both old and new. New dolls were bought for her. Old ones were dolls that were passed down to her. We played with the dolls. I was very fond of this one old doll. It had red hair, pale skin, and red lipstick. We played and played. After that, we watched TV, ate dinner, and talked. When it was very late, we decided to sleep. All my friends were asleep except me. Jealousy got the better of me, so I planned to steal the doll I liked. I went to the doll room, took the doll, and put it in my purse. I go to sleep. The next day, my friends were shocked because my purse somewhat looked like it was ripped apart by a wild animal. My stuff was everywhere, except the doll. We speculated it was a raccoon or a rat, and we all packed and went home. Before we left, to my curiosity, I went to the doll room. The doll I attempted to steal was there. I never came back to my friend's house again. Number 21. I was a train conductor, going from Vancouver to Boston Bar. It was about a 6-hour trip, and it was currently 3 a.m. It was in the middle of nowhere. The train goes into emergency. We came apart. I have to walk about a mile to find the hole. Walking, I swear I can hear another set of footsteps walking on the ballast, the rocks underneath the tracks. I turn around and see nothing. I find the hole and put the train back together, and walk back to head end. I thought I heard someone climbing on one of the ladders on the car. I run to head end, and tell the engineer to keep going. We get to Boston, and tie the train down. Next morning, I find out someone found 2 people hiding in one of the boxcars. Number 22. This is the story from my mother. It was about 20 years ago, when my not-so-younger brother was a baby. For some reason, she had to go to my grandpa's, her father's, summer house in this rural satellite town. The house is big, not huge, but still, and almost ancient. She took my brother with her because he was still very young. Just to clarify, they were alone in the house. The kitchen and cleaning maid slept somewhere else. She wakes up during the night, and she feels someone sitting on the edge of her bed. She turns the lamp on. Not only is no one there, but also my brother, who's standing in his cradle, is staring blankly at her. Number 23. I was about 14, and I start feeling dead uncomfortable around a certain spot in my room. I won't step in the spot or look at the spot. My cats both hate the spot as well. They'll always step around it or sometimes hiss at it. I start to feel like there's something in the spot watching me. This continues for ages. I move to university and things are good for a few days. I discover a new spot, however, and I hate that one too. But then I start having weird dreams. I'm awake early hours of the morning. It's nearly light out and I can hear the seagulls. I see weird black static figures standing in the spot. I can move, but I never leave my bed. A figure climbs on top of me and sticks his hand in my mouth and starts feeling my teeth. Nothing else, he just runs his fingers over my teeth for a few minutes. This continues for nearly a year, until I move into a new house with my course mates. Number 24. I was hunting wild boar on some dude's property one night. Wild boar are basically overgrown rats, which are no-nos for farmers. They are vermin. I'm looking through thermal optics at a soldier with a nice juicy mama, 4 adult males and 6 children. With my finger on the trigger, I slowly pull it back to be dramatic because I can. A long-range shot hits the boar square in the head, causing it to convulse rapidly before dying. The rest of the little bastards scatter over the hills and in the tree line. I down 2 of the adult males and 3 children. I go to collect bodies, with my buddy right behind. I'll call him Joe. I quickly load up bodies and pick up our guns to head out so we can find the remainder of the shoulder. Holy shit, Joe says while shaking my shoulder. I look up halfway before a blinding light is overhead, literally brighter than the moon because it lights up the entire area in white light. Me and Joe are starstruck. This is the first UFO sighting in our lives. I book it toward the truck to find a camera, and I'm rummaging through the back seats. I go back out and take one picture, then it starts moving. Fast, but not as fast as a shooting star or a meteorite. As it moves way farther, it becomes dimmer, until it's only a tiny white dot in the sky, blending in with the rest of the stars. It drops back into the darkness for the rest of the night. Number 25. I was 14, living in the west coast of Scotland. I moved to a really old house right on the beach. In the garden after living there, I started playing with my dogs. I'm facing away from the house, with my dog facing it. After a while, I throw the ball and the dog doesn't even react. Hair spikes up and then he starts growling. He very, very rarely barked or growled. I turn around and look up to see what he's growling at. At my bedroom window, there's a woman dressed in a very dated black dress with her hair tied in a bun, slightly pulling back the curtains and peering down at me. I start to panic. She looks at me for a second, then takes her hand down and walks away. My parents are out, the front door is locked, and the house should be empty. I go in the house, shouting to see who's there. I search the house, and no one is there. I tell my parents, and they just think I'm talking shit. After a year or so of weird things and sightings with the same two people for multiple people, it turns out that my parents have been experiencing stuff since the day we moved in. My dad has always been the skeptical one, and the first to explain everything, but it's only in recent years that we found out he's been having the craziest experiences of all of us. Number 26. I was looking at my window. Right in front of this window, there's another house, about 25 to 50 meters from us. I see this huge shadow taking off from a wall of that house and disappearing in the distance, as if it were flying. It didn't look human, and was kind of shapeless. It obviously wasn't a bird, because it was huge, and we only have pigeons and some bats here, since it's summer. Number 27. This is a dream I had. I was trying to quit smoking at the time, so I was taking chantix. This is also mixed with Percocet and Oxycontin. I haven't seen another human in years, and I'm traveling the destroyed ruins of humanity, scrounging for food and the slightest chance of human contact. I make it to a large city. The sky is a bright hue of crimson, shining between dark clouds in the sky. I find myself walking into a rail yard, tons of trains laying dormant on the tracks. Seems like a good place to stop and eat. I start chowing on a can of Progresso. The label is missing. I glance off in the distance and see a light in a train car. I stand up and grab my carbine and make my way into the train and travel through the cars. I start seeing signs of habitation. I see candlelight glimmering through the broken windows on the door to the next car. I slide it open, and there's a young girl, couldn't be more than 13 years old. "Hello, young miss," I nervously said. "Hi, mister." "Where's your parents?" "Gone." She looked at her feet, forlorn. "Well, you shouldn't be living here all by yourself. It's dangerous." "I haven't seen anybody else." "Well, you can come with me. I'm going to try to find a better place to live, where the sun is." She perked up and accepted my invitation. I felt happy for the first time in a while, traveling alone for so long. "Grab your things then. I'll head outside and make sure it's still safe." "Okay." I go outside and grab my bag and look down the train yard. The train yard went up a very large, steep hill leading into a dark tunnel. I hear screaming. Not a single scream, lots of screams. My dream self suddenly remembered mutants came out to hunt at times. I look up at the hill, into the tunnel, and I see dozens of figures pouring from the tunnel. They begin slamming and scurrying between cars. This causes one of them to derail, rolling downhill. It's starting to pick up speed fast. I rack around into my weapon. I shoulder a weapon and realize the train is heading straight for her car. "Girl, get out of there now," I yelled. It was too late. My heart started to fill with terror and loneliness I couldn't compare anything in my life to. The car slammed in the resting one. Twisted metal flew through the air. Tear ran down my face. I look back to the figures. There's too many to count, all heading toward me. I put the barrel into my mouth and wake up. Number 28. This was many years ago. I was just a small child. I was going to watch James and the Giant Peach before bed. I popped the tape into the VHS player and sit back cozy with some toast. There's an advertisement playing. It's footage of a man talking about something. I don't remember what. Suddenly, his voice goes all deep and distorted. Nowadays, it would sound like something anyone could do with a video editing program. But back then, it was unlike anything I've ever heard. It was deep and garbled, and, I thought, demonic. I'm instantly petrified, and I feel like I'm under attack by my demonic-sounding TV. Then, a black creature leaps in through my bedroom window. I bolt downstairs screaming and crying to my mother, and she overreacts, making things worse. My dad takes action. When he gets out of me that something came in through my window, he charges upstairs. In the end, what happened was that the tape, instead of the VHS, was warped, which distorts the audio. The creature was just a cat, who, of all the times to come into someone else's home, did it then. I will never forget the feeling of horror that came with being convinced that something evil and paranormal was actually happening to me. Number 29. I was home alone last summer, before going to college. It was late at night, and it was time to set the old trusty house alarm, in case any coons came around. Because of the way the house is laid out, certain sections are nearly pitch black, even with the lights turned on. I see a wispy sort of movement at the end of a very long central hallway, by the entrance to a guest bedroom. Whatever, it was probably just something on my eye. I set the alarm and listened to it state in its robotic voice that Sensor 2 is open. Sensor 2 is the back entrance to the garage, which is outside. I unlock locks and hear a soft sort of type of fabric moving off to the left, which is the living room. It's completely pitch black. I stare for a moment before hurrying up at the door. I rush outside, slam the garage door shut, and hurry back inside. I glance back at the living room and make out the faint trace of an old rocking chair, now facing directly towards the front door. I proceed to my room and freak out. I hear a faint rustling sound behind me as I close the door. Number 30. I was about 12 or so, hanging with my best friend of the same age, and my little sister, about 8. I was playing around in the basement, because my parents wouldn't bother me, and my sister. My sister shows off a doll, another gift from her hoarder relative. Me and my friend are both spooked as hell. There's no reason to be, but we were. My sister is confused. We coerce her into putting the doll away. 10 minutes later, my sister gets bored and goes upstairs. The doll is back out in the open. Me and my friend question each other, but we aren't touching it. We aren't having it either. I yell for my sister, and she said that she didn't touch it. We're both freaked out. I pick up the doll after working up the confidence to do so. The doll is ice cold. I drop it and run upstairs. My friend doesn't follow. I turn back after a moment. He's frozen in some trance type shit. I smack him, and he gives me a weird look. I tell him the doll is evil, and I want to go upstairs. But he's pretty chill about it. I sold the doll with no incident a year later. Number 31. It's late at night, between 2 and 4 a.m. I'm talking with my girlfriend on the phone. I hear rustling in my room and pause. It's probably the cat. I go back to chatting it up when I feel the cat tapping at my feet. The rustling is coming from the opposite corner of my room. I flip on the flashlight I keep in bed and see nothing. My girlfriend exclaims that she heard something outside. I'm ugly, so she better not be in danger. I won't get a cuter girlfriend. I try not to sound worried and I ask what's up. She says drunk people are shutting outside. The floodlight outside my window flips on. I lean up and check, and there's nothing outside. I chill and relax. We fall asleep. I wake up maybe 2 minutes later. I whisper my girlfriend's name to see if she's awake. There's nothing. I put the headphones out and stand out. Suddenly I feel cold as hell. I'm almost knocked off balance by nothing. I have a crushing feeling of dread and I suddenly shiver. I turn on my flashlight. The room is empty, but it doesn't feel empty. I stay up all night, feeling spooked the whole time. In the morning, I try to open my bedroom door to find that it's inexplicably locked. Number 32. I was 20 years old, and I still lived with my mom and dad, sorta. Mom and dad have 2 homes, one where I live and one in Australia. We flip between them for dad's work. Half the year, it's just me and my sister in the house. My sister's out most weekends partying. Around 10 p.m. at night, I'm looking into conspiracy theories. I'm looking into stuff that I'd rather not mention, for reasons that'll become clearer later. I'm looking into shit at around 11 p.m. It's dark out. It's kinda creepy. I'm going through random assortments of message boards. Some are harder to access than others. People keep saying that I shouldn't be looking into it. I could get in trouble for even just talking about it. I figure it's just LARPers trying to be scary. Around midnight to 12:30, someone knocks on my door. My heart skips a beat because who knows who is knocking on my door at midnight. I'm insanely sketched out now. I live on a cul-de-sac. I open the door, and there's a man standing at it. Pretty generic man, besides the fact that he was tall, I guess around 6.5 feet. There's an unremarkable van at the neck of the cul-de-sac. Not free candy tier van, but sketchy enough. The man stares at me for a moment before asking if I had seen his dog. What the hell? I ask him what type of dog it was, voice shaking pretty heavily. He says something like, "Oh, just a normal looking dog," or something equally vague. It's a vague enough answer that it's almost as if he doesn't care if I'm sketched out or not. The entire conversation is just kinda surreal, as if it were occurring in a nightmare. I tell him sorry, but I haven't seen his dog. He says, "That's fine, good night." I say goodnight and shut the door. The man goes back to the van and doesn't stop at any of the other houses on the cul-de-sac to ask about his dog. I watch the van for about 10 minutes before it leaves. I'm incredibly paranoid at this point. Trying to go to sleep, but can't because I'm too paranoid. I grab my hunting rifle from the closet, load it, and wait by the window until it's like 1 a.m. I hear noises in the house. My house is made entirely of wood, so it happens sometimes, but it's pretty distinct this time. I'm in paranoia overdrive mode. I'm clearing room by room of the house with a hunting rifle. I convince myself I've gone absolutely crazy, and go back to my room and sit up in bed with all the lights on in the house until 2 a.m., hunting rifle in hand. The lights flicker once, and then the power goes out completely. I start screaming my head off almost involuntarily. My chest tightened like I was having a heart attack. I legitimately thought I was going to get murdered. The lights flicker back on. I look out the window and see a man standing outside my window. It was my reflection. I almost blew a hole in my window because I got scared of my reflection. I stay awake all night hearing stuff. I'm trying hard to remember whether or not he actually referred to me by name when he said goodnight, or if my brain made it up. I get a weird letter from my ISP a week later warning me about suspicious activity. Number 33. It was 2012. I worked overnight at a Walmart I was fairly certain was haunted. Other people had seen spooky stuff. I'd seen spooky stuff. A worker had a heart attack and kicked it there. A lot of stuff added up. In the back rooms is where we keep our inventory. I'm standing by a rack where we store the kitchen utensils and appliances. I'm shooting the shit with a coworker about the stuff I'd seen. She's sharing her stories. We're both skeptical of it, but they're interesting stories nonetheless. I start to walk away from the racks to get back to work. Clang! A microwave lands right where we were standing. It fell from the third shelf on the rack, about 20 feet off the ground. We both have a short laughing fit out of panic and disbelief, and then bolt. That job made me believe in ghosts. Number 34. I was younger me, and in Boy Scouts, camping in some rural park one weekend. It's about evening, and I'm sitting in a hammock, talking to one of the younger scouts about something. The forest is nothing but really tall pines and smaller trees, when I spot something above the pines. It's a glowing green disc flying pretty far above the trees. I would say I'm fairly good at estimating distances, and look to be roughly 100 feet high. I try to get this younger kid to turn around and look at it, but he keeps talking, and it disappears behind the trees. It almost seemed to be floating at a constant speed, on a straight path. I don't think it was a frisbee because of how high it was, and how it was flying straight like that. Before you say drones, this is before they were so common, and this thing was definitely shaped like a disc. Number 35. My parents arrive at a hotel, and they're greeted very warmly by the owner. They enter the room, and it was cold. They go to sleep. Both of them have horrific nightmares. Mom, who is normally extremely well-mannered, dreams of brutally murdering her friends with a blunt object of some sort and enjoying it. My dad dreams of carrying a bleeding, dying girl through a World War II trench under mortar fire. They both wake up at the same time in silence. Mom suggests they sleep on the floor. Mom agrees without questioning. They fall back to sleep, but the horrible dreams continue, and they're woken up twice in the night by loud bangs. The next morning, the owner asks if they slept okay. They don't say anything. It's too weird. But they ask why she asks. She explains guests have been complaining about bad night's sleep, nightmares, and being freaked out by birds hitting the window. They chat a bit more. The parents are obviously weirded out. The owner explains business is going badly since the owner is English in a rural Scottish town. The locals don't like her and refuse to help. The locals left her in a hotel during a storm which ripped the roof off the place a few years back before my parents visited. Creeped out, my parents leave. They feel extremely weird when leaving. Neither of them wanted to look back. Number 36. My girlfriend's family have a get-together of sorts one night. I take her aunt home at about 10:30 to 11. We pull up outside her home and notice her husband is home from work. He does in the night shift. Tells me he can't be because he doesn't finish until 4 in the morning. I can blatantly see a man standing at the bedroom window in the dark. I'm not going to let her go in the house on her own if it isn't her husband, so I tell her I'll go in and check. I take a tire iron with me just in case. I go upstairs. I keep saying her husband's name and tell him I know he's there. I go to the bedroom and the door is ajar. I can hear him breathing behind the door. I switch the light on and jump around the door to scare him. No one at all there. I I checked the other side of the bed. Nothing. I jumped the entire length of the stairs to get out. Her aunt says she is used to it and rebuffs my offer of staying the night at our place. Number 37. I take the bus home at 1 a.m. I have to walk a mile from the bus stop to my home. I get off the bus. Except for the express road the bus was on, all the streetlights are out. I remember the city council decided to put out all the lights at night. It's pitch black because it's cloudy, and I can't see anything but the darkness before me. I use the flashlight on my phone to light my path. I'm also listening to music through earbuds. When I pass the church/graveyard in the village center, my phone suddenly crashes. There's no light and no music. I'm totally 100% scared now. It takes some time for my eyes to adjust. It's dead silent. I have no choice but to continue my way home. I see two glowing eyes looking at me behind some bushes. I'm guessing it must have been a cat, but cats need light for their eyes to reflect. Number 38. I live in Concordia, Argentina. There's an old saltery in San Carlos Park which was abandoned in the 40s. Well, this saltery is believed to be haunted. There are various rumors around it, like satanic and occultic rituals going on in it. There's also this urban myth that says if you don't count all the trees around the saltery and come back later, if you count them again, there will be less trees. I never went there by myself because I'm afraid of going alone. The place is also dangerous. There's also an old castle in the park which was abandoned in 1895 and was burnt later. I've heard that there is the ghost of a young lady who supposedly lived in the castle and died of an illness during a stormy day. Now, it's said that every stormy night her ghost can be seen walking around the castle. One of my cousins said that he, together with some friends, saw the ghost and it acted a bit aggressively toward them before fading to nothing. And then there's other, kind of dumb legend that's about a family woman who, in some moment in her 40s, went out during the night to do I don't know what. Well, she was attacked by a man and killed by 28 stabs to the chest. The killer is never found, but the spirit of the woman sometimes appears during the late night. Number 39. I've got a haunted house story I heard from my dad. It's short and not at all crazy, but it stuck with me because my dad doesn't believe in ghosts, but he still tells the story and admits he can't really explain it. It's 3 or 4 miles from where my dad grew up. There's a very old farmhouse that's been abandoned since before he was born. His aunt told him that when he was a kid, the last of the family that lived in the farmhouse died, and there's an auction held on the property to get rid of all the stuff sitting around that the relatives didn't want. During the sale, his aunt and several other people claimed to see strange gray figures moving around through the window of the house. My dad doesn't believe her. When he's in his teens, he rides a bike to the house with a friend, and they start digging around for loot. While they're on the main floor, they hear a crash upstairs, followed immediately by heavy footsteps running down the stairs. They can see the entire staircase from where they are, and there's nothing on it. They both book it at the house and ride out of there. Number 40. I was taken to foster care when I was very young. I never knew my birth parents. Didn't find out I was adopted until my teens. I had a good childhood. My adoptive parents were loving, kind, and gave me a good upbringing. Every now and then I have a recurring nightmare. Same thing every time. It's in the middle of the day, and I'm out of the woods lying on my back. I'm surrounded by people. Their faces are covered, so I can't see them clearly. One of them grabs my head and forces me to look straight into the sun. Just as my eyes start burning, the sun begins to fade. I'm in pitch blackness, but the spot where the sun used to be is still distinguishable. It's an unnaturally dark circle, kinda hard to describe in words, but an impossibly dark circle. That's when I always wake up, usually covered in sweat and panting. I figured something bad happened to me as a child. Whenever I ask about my birth parents in the past, my folks get really uncomfortable, saying they don't know who they were, or how I could find them. Recently, I went on a massive road trip with a few mates. We stopped in some dead-end town one night, and were drinking at the campsite when some drunk homeless guy comes wandering in. This guy's off his face. It's pretty funny to watch him stumble around and spout random stuff. I tell him we'll give him a beer if he can do 20 push-ups. He manages somehow, and I go to give him a beer. He gets a good look at my face as I hand it to him, and he goes white as a ghost. He drops the beer and jumps back. The guy looks terrified. He points at me and yells, "This one sees the black sun," then runs off. I've never told anyone about the dream, and this scared the hell out of me. So now I feel like maybe I should hire a private investigator or something to look into my parents in childhood. But I'm kinda scared about what I might find out. Number 41. I was in my mom's basement. It was 2 a.m. on a school night. I hear a loud noise upstairs, like a rope falling, but not all at once. I think something fell over because I heard my mom go to sleep on the top floor. I do a mental map of the house to think what's directly above me. I realized it was a large mirror in our dining room. I wait a few seconds. Then, loud and fast sounds. Think of a 140-pound golem was running on all fours. It's running towards the stairs. I hear the wind brush up against the basement door from the momentum. There were no more sounds for the rest of the night, and nothing knocked over in the morning. The rest of my family didn't hear a thing. I now sleep with a weapon. Number 42. I'm out kayaking with my father, and the current is unusually strong. My father accidentally flips his kayak over, and his gear scatters along the sea floor, about 35 feet down. He rights his kayak and asks me to retrieve his stuff. I dive in without thinking, without fins, and after a very draining dive. I swim down and grab the dive bag, when I realize that there are dive weights in the bag. I leave the bag below and surface, but I can no longer see my father. I go back down to try and retrieve the bag a second time. I swim with no fins to the surface with the dive bag filled with weights. I expect my father to come soon as I wade with the weighted dive bag. I am now tired and my body no longer works. I realize that my muscles aren't working and sink below. I give a massive kick to reach the surface and shout for help, but my father is nowhere to be seen. At the last minute, when my body felt like it was going to give out, my father returned, and I was able to rest on the boat. It took an hour of paddling against the current just to get to shore. Number 43. I was launching the kayak in the Everglades, right next to the water. I push the kayak in and jump on top. I slowly ford over George, a 13-foot alligator that hangs around the dock in the glades. His head is the size of a wakeboard. I must have been standing less than 5 feet away from it when I launched the kayak. Number 44. I had just moved to Savannah from a landlocked state. It's the first time at the beach. The ocean is unfathomably huge. It just keeps going and going. It's a hot August day, and we all decide to go swimming. It's maybe my 3rd time swimming. I'm in neck-deep water with a few friends, all 10 feet apart. We're having a heck of a time. I feel something rough and massive push my legs to the side. I'm now out so far I can't touch the bottom, and for the first time in my life, I felt like prey. I swim as fast as possible, with the minimum splashing back to shore, and there's a huge rash on my leg. A beach bum tells me that a big shark rode past me, tasting me. Number 45. I was 11 years old. My family friends and my family always travel the Great Ocean Road in Victoria. At Apollo Bay Beach, my dad, brother, and I decided to go scope out the rock pools where everyone looks like clothes. I'm obsessed with the ocean and rock pools, and I'm having a blast. I'm exploring a roughly 15 centimeter crack in a massive rock. I'm poking around seeing enemies and picking up small crabs when I find this weird looking blob squeezed into the crack. I vaguely remember thinking it was a stockfish or something. I'm observing its patterns and I decide to poke it. As my finger gets close, the thing starts moving around and I realize it isn't a fish. I hear my dad yell from behind, "Jesus! Get away from that!" The blue rings light up. It's a blue ring octopus, the fourth most venomous animal on Earth. I slowly walk away, absolutely paralyzed with fear. I decide to leave and go back to my family friends. My mom asks, "Did you see anything cool?" No, not really. Number 46. I was with the same family friends from the blue ring octopus story. This happened this year on the island Gili Trawangan, off the coast of Lombok. Me, my brother, 4 other family friends, all younger than me, are snorkeling off the island for turtles. We're swimming in about 6-meter deep water with awesome visibility. There's sea turtles everywhere. I even think I saw a leatherback. My uncle, who tagged along for the journey, comes into the water with us. My uncle is the man, ex-army, lives in northern QLD, is handling snakes and stuff all the time. Me and the second oldest family friend decide to swim over the edge of the reef. The uncle is catching up with us. Everyone tags along, and we're taking photos with water satchels. I'm just floating, staring into the deep blue expanse. I can't see the bottom, just pure gorgeous Pacific blue. Suddenly, I feel like my mind is playing tricks with me. I'm seeing shadows of large animals and whatnot. A hand grabs my shoulder. I'm caught off guard, and nearly shit myself. It's my uncle. He points into the expanse, scanning desperately for movement. Suddenly, a black tip reef shark emerges out of the distance. It swims straight towards us, and turns around back into oblivion. I feel like my heart is going to explode out of my chest. I turn to my uncle, and he signals that we should get out of there, while making the shushing gesture to not freak out the younger kids. I refuse to swim with my back where we saw the shark. So I do a survival backstroke all the way so I can see if I'm getting sneaked up by the shark. Number 47. I was 10 years old, and I can't swim, camping on a 100-degree day. We go cool off at the lake. Some guys have this boat where you use foot pedals to move, and they invite me to check it out. I pedal out into the middle of the lake, and they decide to swamp it without warning. I go flying out of the boat, and the lake is extremely deep. I start panicking because I can't swim. Oh shit, little bro can't swim, get him out of there. I'm sinking, and I look down. I almost faint from what I see. It's a steeple of a church. I get pulled out of the water as the boat sinks out of sight, the steeple pointing ominously out of the murky depths. I get put on one of my brother's friend's shoulders as he swims out of the lake. I turn and puke behind us. My brother asks, "Did you swallow any water?" I tell him about the church, and he says, "Yeah, man, this is a man-made lake. It's dammed up about half a mile away. There's a little town from the 1800s under the lake." Number 48. It was my first time overseas, and I'm spending a few months in New Zealand. It's a gorgeous summer day. I'm biking across the country, and I get to the beach and go swimming. The beach is nice and packed, and I lock my bike up. There's another beach across the little bay. I decide to swim for it. There's even boats out there. I'm swimming and find a nice riptide current to carry me for a bit. My foot hits something. It must have been a fish. I'm mildly bothered, but I keep swimming. Some boater yells at me. I was probably out there for a couple hours of swimming. It was a lot farther away than it looked. I get to the shore. The boater almost called the Coast Guard on me before I crossed the sandbar again. I get yelled at. I'm very confused and ask if the water around here is too cold or if I broke a local law. You bloomin' retard! That water's infested with hammerheads. It's a bloody nightmare. Maybe you should pick your water a mite bit better. Fish food looking yank. Scared me half to death. You didn't see the fucking fins, mate. Behind you, 10 fins all the time. He drove me back to the bike, and I got to live knowing I probably kicked a shark. Number 49. I got quite sick a year ago. Blood pressure ran up on me. My brain swelled, and I almost died. I was rushed into the hospital, and they sedated me. I woke up. I couldn't see due to eye damage from BOP, and was hallucinating due to brain swelling. Nurses and doctors in and out. Family in and out. A day goes by, and I pretty well come to. My visions are still messed up, but the hallucinations aren't there anymore. My vision is doing odd things, like keeping images burned in my eyes for a few moments. I can look at a book, put the book down, but I'll still see the words. I notice a blurry woman standing in a corner late at night. I ask her for water, assuming it was the nurse, and she walks away. A few minutes later, I ring the nurse, asking where the water was. She said I didn't ask her, and she brings water and leaves again. The woman is back in the corner, but now she walks a bit closer. Maybe 6 feet from me, but my vision is messed up. I tell her I'm going to sleep, and roll over and pass out. I wake up, and my vision's still messed up. I go through the day. I tell the new intensive care unit nurse about the one last night who wouldn't leave. She says that was odd. That night she shows up again, but comes closer. She dresses kind of like a typical old school nurse, and asks me how I feel. I tell her, and ask for water, and she leaves. My nurse comes in, and I tell her I told the other nurse to get me some water, but she says no one has come in or out of the room. Something happens the next night. Once my brain and eyes got better a couple days later, I stopped seeing her. Number 50. I was a high school student listening to a boring history discussion and feeling the urge to ditch class. I excused myself to the professor because I need to take some rest at the infirmary. The professor agrees. He's probably too tired to care. I go downstairs, 4th floor. I'm feeling an urge to pee. I walk to the corridor leading to the restroom. Our corridor is huge. Its height is probably 3 times my size. I went into one of the 3 cubicles and took a piss. Suddenly, I started to hear a murmur. I can't understand due to an accent, but I think it was spectral supra te. I feel a chill down my spine. I'm now observing my surroundings. I hesitantly checked the other cubicles. No one is inside. There's no one in the restroom except me. Murmur now returns to what seemed like a chant. Specter supra te. Specter supra te. Specter supra te. I checked behind me. Nothing is there. I can't make out where the noise is coming from. I get out of there. I'm about to return to the classroom, pale. My professor sees me as he exits the room and asks me what's going on. I tell him I heard something, but I can't find the source of the noise in the restroom. He stopped for a second, and then asked me what was the noise I heard. Specter supra te. He became pale, and suddenly walks out to meet the principal. I asked him what was wrong, and he wouldn't tell me. The following day, the school invited a priest to bless the school, and focused on the bathroom I took a piss in. The principal talked to me, and told me to forget what happened and not to tell anyone about it. Now I graduated high school and I returned to my alma mater. I noticed that the restroom was renovated and turned into a faculty staff room. I remember that day. I went and checked my old history professor. The douche wouldn't tell me anything that day, and I asked him what happened back then. The professor told me to talk about this outside the room, because it seems the principal told everyone to keep their mouth shut about this, but it was my right to know. There was actually a story that a girl was raped in the men's restroom stalls decades ago. The culprits were never captured. The girl committed suicide days later in the same restroom by hanging herself, and the school tried to forget the incident that took place. Then I remembered what made my professor shudder all of a sudden. What about the noise I kept hearing that day? You mean spectre superate? Yeah. Do you really want to know? I nodded. It's Latin for, look above you. Thank you guys for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. This took a massive amount of effort to make this video, so I'd appreciate it if you share this on Twitter and subscribe to my channel. If you enjoyed this video and want to see other videos like it, please check out my True Scary Story Narrations playlist. I have another 52 Scary Stories video on there, as well as other smaller videos. If you have any questions or comments, please comment them down below. If you're wondering where the music came from, for this 52 Scary Stories video, I added music in. It's from Purple Planet. They've been a huge help for me making my videos. Thank you, and remember, fear keeps us going.